How's it going, everybody? My name is Chad. With me is Eric and Leonard. We have here today sort of a Dailies to Downloads nitty gritty crossover event. Um,
The
it,
brands are emerging.
yeah, that's right. We're going to have a draft next week.
Multiverse.
And so we wanted to go over our Royal Rumble predictions with you this week. And the Royal Rumble obviously is this Sunday. It's always one of my favorite events. I don't know about you guys. Is this your favorite pay-per-view, or you guys prefer WrestleMania?
I prefer the Royal Rumble. I haven't done it in a couple of years, but usually my friend Dan, who was our guest star on the Nitty Gritty recently, he would come up and we would go to my brother-in-law's house and we would watch the Rumble and WrestleMania. And those were the only two pay-per-views I would go on my way to make sure I watched them year to year. And I am going to be watching the Royal Rumble this year. As we've talked about before, I haven't been watching a lot of the current product. I do want to watch the Rumble, and I'm in a Rumble pool for men's and women's. So I'm really just rooting for whoever comes out of those numbers.
Yeah, same with me. I feel that the Rumble is the most fan participatory event of the year. And same kind of thing. Yeah, like I think it's easy to kind of like have a group drawing of numbers and things like that. And now that we have two Rumbles in the same night, that only makes it even more interactive. So the Rumble is probably my favorite of the year for that reason as well. Because that's when everything starts. The road to WrestleMania, as they say, kind of begins there. And so that has the most intrigue, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of my favorites, even though if you went back the past 5 years or so, they always seem to, most of the time, I would say with the exception of last year, there's always that little bit of disappointment. Like they always seem to be a little bit behind the ball as to where to go or who to push. But I did like Drew McIntyre getting pushed, but we will get more into him. So before we get to the Rumbles themselves, obviously I should add that this is taking place in the Thunderdome. So the aspect of the crowd's reactions to the entrance and who's a surprise and who isn't will not be a factor unless you count the filtered in computer noise that they do, which I don't mind the cheering or the booing, but when they do the chants, that is to me just a step over the line. Like that's annoying. Like don't do that. Don't do the "this is awesome" or like we don't need to hear that.
Yeah. The Thunderdome thing has been okay, but like they are taking advantage of like maybe we'll talk about Alexa Bliss, her costume changes that is obviously meaning that they cut the tape and they do a costume change and come right back. So if it's all supposed to be live with a Thunderdome audience, do they all close their eyes for 10 minutes? Right. We don't know how that works. Maybe their Wi-Fi goes out and then she comes back and she's done the whole costume change. Who knows? But
they're having Wi-Fi issues.
Exactly.
So let's go over the other matches that are on the card. We have Asuka and Charlotte Flair defending the women's tag team titles against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. We have Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg for the WWE Championship. And then we have Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens in a last man standing match for the WWE Universal Championship. And I got to say, I don't really care too much about any of those matches. I think that it's neat that Drew McIntyre has an opponent like Goldberg. I think a lot of people's fear is that they're going to give the title to Goldberg somehow. I don't see that happening in this case. I think that more than likely what will happen is Drew McIntyre will probably win, and you'll have The Miz enter into it with the Money in the Bank briefcase, which I got to say, Miz going into WrestleMania as the champ would not be my first choice of moves. But other than that, Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, I like both of them. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Roman Reigns is going to win that one. And the women's tag team titles are what they are. All good talents in there, but the women's tag team titles, I think, need to be a little bit more relevant than they are. What do you think, Eric? Any thoughts on any of those?
I think for the main title matches. Think of like the Drew McIntyre one. What's also interesting due to the pandemic is that we haven't had our typical 3 or 4 Saudi Arabia Superstar Showdown Crown Jewel events that we normally do, which is like usually when you get really scared when they announce like Goldberg for something because you're like, oh, they're gonna have them go over. Like last year when Goldberg,
or he might kill somebody like the Undertaker.
or he might kill someone, you know. But I include murder as going over. You know, so that you know that's the ultimate going over. That's the ultimate push. But yeah, like when Goldberg beat Bray last year, and you know, that kind of stuff. Now that we don't have that, I would like to think as well that Drew McIntyre will go over because you don't need to please, I don't know, a global audience
right.
or anything like that. And so, you know, I would like to see his reign continue. I was a little miffed at him losing the belt to Orton for like 2 weeks. Or if that, maybe even less than
I wondered if that was to pad Orton's title wins.
Maybe, yeah. Like they had the 3 matches, and then a Hell in the Cell. He finally lost it, and I said, okay, you know. And then he won it back on a Raw like 2 weeks later.
Right.
So hopefully he continues his reign. I think he has the momentum, and with Roman Reigns, he also seems like the cool. I mean, the heel turn I think has been pretty successful.
Yeah.
So it feels like that's something to ride out even further. And I don't know who they would have him face at Mania, but obviously you wouldn't want to cut that short.
Well, yeah, there's rumors there. There's rumors of The Rock, although I can't see with his movie schedule that being a reality.
Yeah,
that seems to be the dream match that a lot of people want to see. Although if it's not him, then you know we could talk about who else as we get into the Rumble picks because there might be some surprise entrance there. So, what do you think, Leonard? Are you a Goldberg fan? Are you wearing your Goldberg shirt today?
No, I'm wearing just the shirt I had on. Well, first of all, I believe that yes, Roman Reigns is probably the only 100% lock to win on the show. They're not going to take it off of him now. The tag titles, I think Jax and Baszler are going to win those back, and I think some of that could play into the Women's Rumble, which we'll get to. And then I'm going to disappoint the two of you and say I think Goldberg's going to win the title. And here's why. And this is so, as I've noted, I'm not watching a lot of the current product. And when Chad said to me, hey, do you want to do this? I said, well, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know a whole lot about what's going on. And I started to do a little bit of research. But then I realized that none of that matters. Because earlier this week, it was announced that the WWE Network is going under the Peacock Network umbrella.
Right.
So that means you're going to get a lot of new eyes on the WWE product heading into WrestleMania and eyes that don't know the product, general public to the very casual fan. So because of that, I think you're going to see a lot of big names brought in and pushed even more than what they would usually do for WrestleMania season. So really current characters and storylines don't matter. And Goldberg's the name value. So that's what I think he's going to win. If he doesn't win, I think he will be involved in WrestleMania somehow. How that is, I don't know. But especially earlier in the night, if he does win, I think that might dictate a little bit about what you're going to see in the 2 Rumble matches.
I've heard John Cena's name mentioned with him, possibly for Mania. You know, at this point, it's all rumor and conjecture.
He's still trapped in the Firefly Funhouse, isn't he? I don't think he ever got out since the last fight.
He's waiting patiently for Fast and the Furious 9 to.
That's it. That's why he keeps getting pushed back every year. We'll see.
So yeah, no, that's an interesting argument though. Like that's a valid argument. So it'll be interesting then to see who our picks are for the Rumble itself. So on that note, let's start with the Women's Rumble. So far, obviously, at this point, not everybody has been announced. So right now, we have announced for the Women's Rumble, we have Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Bayley, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, Peyton Royce, Alexa Bliss, Shayna Baszler, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and Tamina. So obviously, there's going to be some surprise entrants, or maybe they'll bring some veterans back as they have to kind of pad that out because the women's roster is not nearly as large. Probably some NXT people as well. which will be interesting. So here's my logic for my pick for the Women's Rumble. So far, being that the Women's Rumble is still in its infancy in many ways, they seem to be giving the winner seems to be somebody that has a lot of name value already, and it's kind of just to get the notch of winning the Rumble under their belt. You had Asuka, then you had Becky Lynch, and then recently you had Charlotte Flair. If Sasha Banks wasn't the champion, I would pick her, but she is. So I think it comes down to Bayley and Alexa Bliss, both of whom are well-established talents who have been champion, and they haven't really had a full-on heel win the Rumble for the women yet. So I think Bayley, being that she just had a really long reign, I don't know if it'll be her. So my pick is Alexa Bliss. I think that they're pushing her enough with the whole Fiend connection that I think it's a strong possibility that she wins. So that's my pick. Eric, what do you think?
I would think that, again, like sometimes, like you said, like putting too much logic to it can work against you as well. Because there have been times where like I've mapped out, like I am 100% sure so-and-so is going to win the Rumble because this will lead to this, blah, blah, blah. And then it doesn't happen. And I'm like, oh my God, everything I believed has been has been a fraud. Like the year we all wanted Daniel Bryan to win, and then he wasn't even in the Rumble, but he still went on to be in the triple threat match at Mania and win the title. So like they can mess with you a little bit. Alexa Bliss would be an interesting. She's definitely the most over, I feel like, female wrestler right now on the roster. But I also don't think that she seems to be in her own storyline strand with the Fiend that it almost feels to be somewhat secondary to what the Rumble would entail. So in a way, like I'm somewhat hoping for like a Bianca Belair. And of those announced so far, I guess she would be my pick, just because she does have the feud going on with Bayley, and they are giving her enough TV time every week. The timed competition with Bayley this past week and things like that. So it does seem like at least they are pushing her up to be her own legitimate singles competitor, and if not her, then it would probably have to be someone that's a surprise, I would think. And I've kind of given up anticipating Ronda Rousey's return.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
because I
happen, but
initially she had always said for a long time that she was going to go away to have a family. With the guy that she was with, Travis Brown. And so that's what I thought was going to happen. But it didn't, as far as I know. So I think a lot of people were waiting for her to return. So, I mean, that might be a surprise return. I'd be surprised if they have her win it, although it's very possible. So you can only guess. But I would love to see somebody like Bianca Belair win, simply because that's kind of where the men's Rumble is at. You want to see somebody, generally anyway, who needs a push, or who needs to get to that next level, or who the fans want to get to that next level. It just feels like the Women's Rumble is not really quite there yet, but we'll see. It could be anybody. Leonard, what do you think?
Well, Bayley and Alexa Bliss were my secondary choices. Bayley, because again, I think of everyone who's been announced so far, she's the one who's had the best career and the best previous year and all that. Bliss, because everything going on with the Fiend, even though I do agree with Eric that's kind of separate. So they're maybe not to the point where they would have her do her own thing outside that. I also did think of Ronda Rousey. If you're going to have any surprise return to win, it would be Rousey.
Right.
But to me, the clear choice is Charlotte Flair because of the Flair name. Everything I was saying before, you want that name value. And I remember there was a period where they were just calling her Charlotte. But from what I've seen recently, she's Charlotte Flair again. And they've brought Ric Flair back. And I know there's the whole angle that they're doing with Lacey Evans, which you can always either back burner or tie up quickly in February. But I think it's name value and recognition, and a general audience knows Flair. They know the name Flair. Doesn't matter who is the first name, they know Flair.
Right.
So I think because of that, she's going to be the clear win. She's clear to me on the women's side. And because of that, I think you're going to see her and Asuka lose the women's tag belts, and then they'll get into it, and that's going to be the feud there. And I know, Chad, you were talking about how they're giving it to individual women who need it, or so they can have that on their, scorecard. Hey, I'm a Rumble winner. But once you win it once, then the next thing is you got to win it twice.
Right.
So Charlotte Flair being able to say, I'm the 2-time women's Rumble winner, that's also a huge feather in her cap. And I know a lot of people hate it, but anytime they want to push someone, anytime they want to give a woman a record, an accolade, it seems to be Charlotte Flair. So with all that being said, and again, my theory of they're going to do the thing that is going to appeal the most to the broadest people, I go Charlotte Flair.
All right. Well, yeah, that would be interesting.
It'd be back to back, right? Back to back years.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah,
and Hulk Hogan did that.
Absolutely.
He won the 90-91 Rumbles.
Yeah. And Shawn Michaels, right?
Yeah, I think I don't remember what years.
Austin won back to back. I mean, he ended up winning 3. Vince McMahon won in between the 2, but 97-98, I believe, was Austin. So it is certainly possible. And this would be the first time for the women, as you said. So let's move on to the men's Royal Rumble. But before we do that, is anybody hoping for in the future back to 40 participants, or maybe the greatest Royal Rumble, which had, I don't know, 600 or something? I forget.
600 participants. It's still going on.
Yeah. the original was only 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
And there was 2-minute intervals, and now they do what, 90 seconds?
Yeah. The most annoying thing going back and watching these Rumbles is how the time between entrants has changed so much over the years and gone back and forth. I guess lately they've probably been sticking to 90 seconds. So hopefully that's the case. I forgot to add also that one of the other matches that was rumored, but I guess is not going to happen, seeing as how it's this Sunday, was going to be a Randy Orton Fiend Firefly Funhouse match, which obviously that storyline is still going on, but it looks like that's not going to happen. They're probably going to extend that into the next pay-per-view, which is either Chamber or Fastlane, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So let's go over the guys that have been announced for the men's side. It's Daniel Bryan, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Otis, The Miz, Jey Uso, Cesaro, Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Shinsuke Nakamura, Big E, John Morrison, Sheamus, Mustafa Ali, and Edge. So I'm not going to go first this time. Eric, who is your pick for the men?
My pick is someone who is not officially announced, but you did mention him, and it would be Bray Wyatt. And the way I map out like a Rumble winner is that, like, okay, who would it make sense for if the two main champions don't change between now and Mania? Who would make most sense to like pair up with whom? And I think that having Drew McIntyre never really interact with Bray Wyatt at all throughout his career, as far as I know, it would at least make it feel like something that we haven't seen before, and it would give Drew McIntyre, assuming, in my opinion, if he beats Goldberg, another giant mountain to climb, and given all the theatrics as well, with the Bray Wyatt character, I think a Bray Wyatt versus Drew McIntyre for the title would make sense at Mania. I can't see anyone on the SmackDown side that would necessarily be as high caliber to challenge Roman Reigns at Mania. I feel like that would be that's another wrench I feel like that's thrown into all this, is the Elimination Chamber. Over the past 5 years or so, in some ways that is the pay-per-view that tends to course correct things that people maybe didn't like out of the outcome of the Rumble.
Yeah.
and still kind of like either reverse a decision or to kind of make a little bit of a U-turn. So I think the Roman Reigns feud, whatever that turns out to be at Mania, I think that would be determined at the Chamber, where I could see Bray, given the whole theatrics, and also they can still be kind of creative with what they do, given the no actual live fans there. He seems to be the closest thing, and he hasn't won before either. And I think everyone would say he deserves it. And he's had his 2 title reigns end very prematurely, unfortunately. So hopefully he's in it. And I think him not having a one-on-one match with Orton implies that
there will be a showdown
that
there.
That he will be, but
yeah.
No, that's my pick though.
All right, Leonard.
Okay, you're gonna hate it, and everyone's gonna hate it. WWE is going to the Peacock Network, as I mentioned. Young Rock is debuting on NBC February 16th, and they're pushing the hell out of it. Dwayne Johnson is one of the biggest movie stars and known commodities in the world. We mentioned earlier the rumors, at least people wanting to see Roman Reigns versus The Rock. So I say Rock comes in at number 30, does 0 bumps, and wins. I know Eric mentioned his movie schedule. I'm not sure exactly what he is or isn't working on right now. But I think he has cut back, as a lot of people have cut back due to COVID.
Right.
So, I think he could fit something in. And there's a lot of story to tell there between him and Reigns.
Yeah.
If it's not him, again, going with my name value theory, I would think it would either be Brock Lesnar or John Cena. And the less you hear of those 3 names going into Sunday, the more likely it is going to be one of those people.
Well, okay. So I agree partly with what you're saying, with your logic. So first of all, The Rock, the reason why, well, it would be an interesting surprise for The Rock to win. I think this would be his second if he were to win it. But in the past, when he wrestled John Cena the second time, actually, it was the Mania that Eric and I were at.
Yeah.
But after that, there became an issue with regard to the insurance and the movies that he was signed on to. And if he were to do WWE work, if he got injured, it would affect the movie schedule. And so that's why I hesitate to say, yeah, he's definitely going to go into Mania. But it's possible, like you said, because of the pandemic, who knows what projects he's in between with, and maybe he has time. So it would be, if Roman Reigns were to have an opponent, I would love for it to be somebody like that. But as far as what you were saying about the not hearing the names, I would agree with that. I think with John Cena, I think it's a foregone conclusion. He'll show up at some point. Probably. Whether or not it's the Rumble, I think he'll show up at some point. Lesnar is the one where I don't agree with. I'm not totally sure that he's going to come back for WrestleMania, because he kind of, as Triple H just said in an interview recently, he does what he wants.
Right. He's the ultimate wild card.
Right. And if it isn't The Rock facing Roman Reigns, the logical next opponent would be Brock Lesnar with the Heyman connection. So, but I don't see that happening just yet. But my pick, I'm actually going to I'll give a pick of somebody I would love to see win it. And if you said, Leonard, that we'd hate your pick, you're going to hate the person I would love to see win it. I know they're not gonna, but I would love to see it. And the person I would like to see win is Cesaro. He recently had a really big win against Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, and they've been pushing him a little bit to the point where I think if he has any chance at all of getting to that next step, it would be now. So I would love to see that. I think they need to pull the trigger on him. I think they need to, like, as you were saying though, Leonard, with the whole Peacock Network thing, it would be a risk to push somebody like that at this point, but I would love to see it. However, the person I think has a better chance of winning is Edge. And the reason I say that is because this year we already know he's going to be in it. He just announced it. Last year was a surprise. This year he has a couple different things that were left. Like, he has the Randy Orton feud that hasn't been resolved. So that could potentially come down the line. And historically, WWE's Rumble winners, they love the comeback win story. He's coming back from another injury. I mean, think about all the guys who have come back from injuries and ended up winning the Rumble to go on to Mania to get the title back. I mean, you had Austin do it. You had Triple H do it. John Cena did it. The list is endless. It happens all the time. So I think it's a very high probability that he would win. And I think he and Drew McIntyre would be a good Mania match to have if they can't land some of these other people that we mentioned, like Lesnar or The Rock.
It's funny that you mentioned that who he would choose, because I was thinking like, oh, okay, they would do the Edge versus Reigns, Spear versus Spear.
Yeah.
But then I thought, oh wait, that's what they were going to do last year with Reigns and Goldberg, and then Reigns backed out due to the pandemic,
Right.
and then they just never acknowledged it ever again. That match is still they had a contract signing, so I don't know when that contract is void, but it's still still up in the air. But I guess I thought if Edge were to win, he would challenge Reigns as a spear versus spear thing, but maybe not.
That would be a logical story too. And and like everybody, a lot of people might say, well, Edge can't win because he has to face Randy Orton again. Well, it's like they did that last year.
Yeah.
And then they had the whole greatest match ever thing, which for them to
greater-esque match.
Yeah, for them to go back to that, I think would not make sense. And with Eric, I forgot to comment on your pick. I would have no issue with Bray Wyatt winning. I wonder though if he is going to fill the shoes of the Undertaker role at Mania for a while now, in that he has some opponent and some storyline, but is hardly ever there for the title.
I mean, he doesn't need it. I get like his character works independently of any particular storyline or championship push or whatever. Right. But it's been a while. I mean, last year having Drew McIntyre win felt like the first time in a while that we had a Rumble winner who had actually never won the main title before.
Right.
That used to be a big thing in the 90s and whatever, and then you go to the main event of Mania and that is your storybook Cinderella ending.
Right.
We kind of gotten away from that for a while, and then Drew McIntyre was a nice return to form. I can't think of anyone necessarily. The three of us haven't chosen anyone who would be a first time. Keith Lee?
Well, Cesaro would be the only one.
Cesaro would be, yeah.
I mean, Bobby Lashley has the U.S. title, so I don't think that he would win. Although down the line, I'm sure he would have a push coming. But,
Dominic Mysterio is he too early?
Name value.
It's true. I mean, that is.
Hogan comes out of retirement.
Well, actually, I had to. First of all, I want to say that Edge and Daniel Bryan were my two picks of names that have actually been announced. Edge for a lot of the reasons that you said. And again, name value. Bryan's got name value to a degree as well. But then my other picks were Hulk Hogan's mustache, the ghost of Andre the Giant, Kevin Owens in a Chris Jericho mask, and Otis in face paint as Ultimate Otis.
I mean, Otis is interesting in that, like, I have him winning the Money in the Bank briefcase in the first place was odd, but I was interested to see what they would do with it. And I
feel bad for him, really.
They did nothing with it. It was absolutely a joke.
He had a hot point, and then it fizzled, and they didn't do anything.
The rumors, and I'm sure this would all be denied, but the rumors were that a lot of people behind the scenes, excluding Vince, because I guess Vince really likes him, were like kind of, politicking for him to not have it. So I thought it was interesting that he won. I thought, like you, Eric, I thought it would have been cool to see where that went. But like he had Liv Morgan with him, or no, I'm sorry, Mandy Rose. He had that thing going, then he had the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then they just took everything. And what was the logic there? Well, just because. Okay.
The only other name I would mention real quick here would be Big E. I've heard some rumblings and some people think that he might be in line for a push, and it would be kind of almost feels like the Kofi Kingston storyline in a way if he would get it. So I don't think he's quite there yet, but seeing how this coming year is, he might be a candidate for next year.
Yeah, and also we didn't mention, although I don't think either of them are going to win, some surprise entrants. Well, there'll be surprises, I guess, in WWE's head. I'm sure Seth Rollins will come back to be in it. I would imagine Braun Strowman, although I don't know the nature of his injury, but I would imagine those guys are going to be in it. But Rollins has won recently in 2019, I think. So I'm sure
that the lone wolf Baron Corbin, is he? What's his status?
I mean, he's still. I don't know. I mean, that would be an interesting way to go. But
Didn't he die when he got thrown off the roof by Otis?
Oh, that's right. Is that the last we've seen of him? Did he?
No, he's been feuding. I'm trying to think. I don't watch SmackDown as much as I do.
Again, I haven't been watching, so I don't know. I know he got thrown off a building.
He's been feuding. I don't know. Was Chad Gable he's been feuding with? I forget who. It doesn't really matter. But anywho, so those are our picks. Please let us know in the comments who you think is going to win. We will see. If Leonard is wrong, he has vowed to do 5 shots, right, Leonard?
Right. But if I'm right and it's The Rock, you guys are going to do 10.
Okay.
True.
And
he's going to buy the premium Peacock experience where it comes with it. You have to watch Friends from beginning to end, and The Office, and you have to watch every single episode from beginning to end again.
So Leonard and I had talked about like trying out some of the different wrestling related drinks. Like they have the Undertaker wine and the Ultimate Warrior wine. Yeah. Although in order to get that wine, you have to get 2 bottles, and it's $100 for two bottles. Like the wine that we buy at my house is like $10 to $20. Yeah. So if I were to spend $100 on 2 bottles of Ultimate Warrior wine, I'd be sleeping on the couch for sure.
For sure. And it's pretty. Is it made by the WWE? Like who's producing this wine?
Otis might have stamped on the grapes. I have no idea.
I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not worth the $100 or $50.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But anyway, let us know if you've tried it. But for Leonard and Eric, my name is Chad, and we will see you next time.